It's being recorded. So we all know that experiencing meaning in life is beneficial and adaptive for both coping with life adversities, trauma and suffering, and also for thriving and well-being and mental health. But how do we find meaning in life? Where do we find it? Which processes and mechanisms contribute to a sense of meaning in life? And this is a non-exhaustive list, of course, but we know that we can find meaning through religion and spirituality, through social relationships and belonging to the community. We know that meaningful work and contribution to the greater society, being a part of culture and community, facing adversity, crisis, trauma, and on the other end of the spectrum, positive affect. We also know that death awareness can trigger finding meaning in life. We know that routines and nature can be sources of meaning in life. And of course, intentional processes such as psychotherapy. We also know from my own kind of a modest contribution to the field that we can find meaning through transformative life experiences, through extending our comfort zones, and also through prioritizing meaning, which means our intentional engagement in activities and situations that are likely to elicit experience of meaning in life. Most of these pathways correspond with Viktor Frankl's meaning triangle of the creative, experiential, attitudinal values, and also with research underscoring sources of meaning in life. I would even add education, given my work with children and adolescents, as another source of meaning in life. But much less is known, and we know little about the implicit processes by which meaning is found or discovered. Which processes and mechanisms contribute to a sense of meaning in everyday life? And I think that this is a question that we all care about here. How do we make meaning concepts more accessible and concrete, relevant to our everyday experience and existence, rather than abstract and intellectualized? And we know also that sense-making is a fundamental human motivation. We strive to make sense of the world around us. We know that as language develops, one of the first questions that children ask in a young age is why. They want to make sense of themselves and the world around them. We need to know that our lives are meaningful and that things are significant, useful, and important. So we tend to make sense of life's event. Even we know in developmentally, cross-culturally, that one of the mechanisms that is central to meaning in life is living in a world that makes sense, a feeling that things have order. We want to detect connections, associations, and regularity in the environment, which we know it's largely a product of unconscious processes. It's not necessarily something which is intentional. It can be noticed and detected. It is largely a product of unconscious processes rather than intentional. And just to give you a sense, one of the implicit processes we are constantly occupied with on a daily basis is making sense of the world around us. We're searching for order. We want to make sense of the picture. Do you see a dog here? Can you see? You can see people are looking. Did you connect the dots? We're doing that on a regular basis. We're connecting the dots. Some even argue that our brains have evolved as pattern recognition machines. We are wired to look for structure and patterns, like in this nice example of the hanger. Do you see a drunk octopus wants to fight in this hanger? Many people do. Children do. So this is a very human, very unique motivation. And we also see that in laboratory studies, showing that when confronted with a threat to their sense of control, people tend to identify patterns in random displays. And when exposing people to examples of incoherence in nature or society, it decreases their sense of purpose in life and their willingness to engage in goal-directed actions. But that's in labs. What happens when there is a specific everyday experience of incoherence outside of the lab in real-life settings? More knowledge is needed to better understand individual sense-making of uncertainties involved with unpredictable events or unexpected coincidence. Experiences of unpredictable happenings may temporarily shake us and challenge our sense of certainty and control in life. But when we are capable of making sense of such happenings, it may open up opportunities for greater sense of meaning in life. So for example, I know you're hungry by now, it's afternoon. So what do you see here? Do you see an egg and French fries? Yeah, I can see. But can you also see a yogurt, peach, and apple in the same picture? I can see Mantak is trying to figure out. So how do we treat unfamiliar patterns in our environment? What is our taken for granted reality? Very often we have unintentional blindness, which occurs when we fail to notice a visible yet unexpected stimulus. Our attentional choices may shape our experience. So moving forward, and I can see there are some comments in the chat, so I'll soon look at them. We've all experienced that fleeting moment where a strange and often random occurrence leaves us wondering, how is that possible? How is that possible? Or, that's interesting, but we tend to overlook them or call it something else. So I want to invite you to a little exercise. I want to invite you to take a moment and try to recall a personal experience of unexplained coincidence that had a special meaning for you. Okay, so take a moment. It can be something that signified something special. It can be a coincidence that helped you make an important decision you had to make. So let's give it a minute or two, just try to recall it, and you're more than welcome to share it in the chat. I'll stop sharing for a minute to see your comments. Okay. Whatever comes to mind can be a very small instance of such an experience. Oh, wow. Thank you. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Divanshi Sharma, thank you for being the courageous first one. So when I think of someone and they call without me telling them to, wow. So you think of someone and then he suddenly calls you. That's a beautiful example. Thank you. Thank you. An everyday example. Can think of someone and then I get an unexpected phone call. Great. Okay, please continue thinking, and I'll want to move to the next challenge. So now I want to invite you to take a moment to consider these questions. What was the meaning or role of the experience for you? What stands out for you? Can you detect meaning clues in this story? It can be a value, a strength, something you feel is meaningful. What can you learn from this event or experience about yourself, about life? What's important in this story? What is your main takeaway? Please write down anything that comes to mind. Anything that comes to mind is important because it stands out for you. We can have many experiences, but if this one is meaningful, then it has something for you. So let's take another few minutes. And of course, you're more than welcome to share in the chat. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you, Divani Sharma. So he says about something about good relationship, that if I'm missing them, they are doing the same as well. Great insight. Meaningful experience can strengthen your self-concept. Thank you, Lam Wai Hung. I hope I pronounced it correctly. And another person says something about a medical condition and a message perhaps to explore my daily routine. Perhaps it's a sign to prioritize something differently in my everyday life. Thank you so much for participating. So when we're open to this potential, it can open various ways to make meaning out of these experiences. So I'll move forward, but I again invite you to keep thinking about those experiences and the messages or the meaning clues that may be embedded in them. So as we've seen, being mindful is key. The psychiatrist Carl Gustav Jung coined the term synchronicity to describe simultaneous occurrence of two meaningfully but not causally connected events. In other words, it's the coincidence of events that appear meaningfully related but do not seem to have causally connected in terms of cause and effect. Jung found in his clinical work that awareness to synchronicity experiences played a central role in his clients' psychological breakthrough and personal transformation processes. So sometimes it's a connection, as we've seen through the examples, between an inner event. It can be a thought, I can think about someone, something struggling to make a choice or decision, and an external event that occurs simultaneously. Oh, I see that we have some more ideas. As assistance from universe or redirections. Beautiful. Thank you, Samantha. And something that might in the right path of life. Great. So this is something that really, oh, I love those examples. Thank you for sharing. So it can be something that really directs me to get something. It can be a decision, a work decision, a career decision. It can be something that kind of a field that I'm guided to make a decision. It can be a sense of finding order in life, that it has a message. And this is exactly what Jung found with his clients and patients, that once he was open as their therapist, it enabled them personal transformation processes. And since Jung introduced the concept, it has gained a lot of documented case studies. We have a lot of case studies from therapeutic and clinical settings that showing its importance, that showing how it's beneficial in terms of therapeutic settings. Also, it was discussing career counseling theories, such as a planned happenstance. So today we have some very nice theories within career counseling indicating that coincidental events can be seen as turning points in one's careers. Just think about it. Most of our careers are not linear, right? We say yes to an opportunity, we pick up the phone, we meet someone unexpectedly, and where we're open. I always say that opportunities dance with those who are already on the dance floor, but sometimes we need to put ourselves out there in the dance floor. So, although empirical research on the concept has been very, very largely discussed within the clinical literature and career development, it has been, very, very sparse in terms of systematic scientific research. It hasn't been explored as an everyday phenomena, but as we've seen, each of us can think of even just one example in everyday life. So we need a more holistic and systematic exploration to better understand this phenomena as it plays out in everyday life. Or in the words of Carl Jung himself, synchronicity is an ever-present reality for those who have eyes to see. So what does it mean? I want to just share with you some of the steps we've done to try to kind of untangle and unpack this concept in everyday life. In light of the lacuna of knowledge on this topic, our first step was to understand in depth, bottom up, how people experience synchronicity in their lives. What are the characteristics and nature of synchronicity awareness? synchronicity, experiences and possible outcomes. So that was the first exploratory phenomenological study, qualitative study I've done with Dr. Tamar Itzikson. And it was conducted through a face-to-face in-depth interviews with people from all over, different ages, different gender, different sectors. And we wanted to understand what is it like. We wanted to understand their lived experience in order to map the phenomena. And what we found is a spiral model, which we called REM. Is an acronym to REM, not the band. So it was comprised of 3 building blocks. The first one is receptiveness, which included both attention and intention. For many people, it was the experience of being open as a precondition to experience synchronicity, paying attention and being intentional. This state of mind interacted with an emotion-evoking experience that had proper timing, it was memorable, and had emotional intensity, as some of your examples will exemplify. And the third one was meaning detecting. Once I'm able to see the meaning clues, as I invited you earlier to find, what does it mean? How can we connect the dots? How can we take those pieces of the puzzle together, made people feel increased positive emotions? It strengthened their sense of coherence, gave them a sense of self-direction and purpose. So just to delve in a bit about each of these building blocks, the first one is receptiveness. And again, it was a precondition we identified as a facilitator to the experience. It included attentiveness, curiosity, flexibility, being able to be attuned to novel experiences, which then led to openness to new opportunities. The second building block refers to emotion-evoking event involving, as I mentioned, proper timing, memorability, and emotional intensity. And it could be physical signs, as some of you wrote. It can be goosebumps. It can be something, I became ill, I fell down the stairs. It could be something physical that I can find meaning in. It could be even significant messages. I opened the radio, it had an answer for me through a song. It can be a street sign, something in nature. It could be a social encounter, as we've seen in your examples, and interactions with other people. And the third building block was the capability to connect the coincidental event to people's personal narrative and history. Then participants felt that their lives were guided and directed. So encountering an unexpected, often unexplained event with openness and curiosity evoked a search for meaning, trying to make sense of it and trying to connect that in the greater scheme of their lives. So overall, this process represented a dynamic cycle that emerged from the study and enhanced our orientation of learned meaningfulness, right? It became a cycle that self-enforcing rather than ignoring or rejecting unexpected triggers in our environment. Once I'm open, once I can make sense of what happens, I'm more open to other experiences, unexpected experience in my environment. So it became a sense of learned meaningfulness that I can, exactly like we're saying about learned helplessness, right? We can learn to be helpless and we can learn to find more meaning in our environment. So following this qualitative study, we wanted to expand our understanding and insights from this preliminary exploration in order to understand individual differences. We all know there are individual differences in experiencing synchronicity. And we also wanted to understand the possible benefits of synchronicity, because people in their own experiences and voices said that it had beneficial contribution. We know that from case studies in therapeutic settings, but what does it mean in everyday life? So given that people differ in the tendency to detect synchronicity experiences and make sense of them, And given to the best of our knowledge, there is no valid assessment tool that has yet to be offered and validated, we wanted to develop a new measure tool that will help us better understand the prevalence of the phenomena in various populations, and also to explore potential relationships with other psychological constructs. So our quantitative study had two aims. The first one was to validate a tool, a first of its kind, to assess individual differences in synchronicity awareness, building on the qualitative REM model. And the second one is to explore potential links between synchronicity awareness and well-being. So I want to kind of introduce to you the development and the validation of the Synchronicity Awareness and Meaning Detecting Scale, the SAMD. And we conducted two studies. The items that were developed based on the literature, as well as the bottom-up approach to the exploration of synchronicity experiences. We use content analysis of in-depth interviews to create the preliminary item pool. And then we wanted to assess the structural validity and internal reliability, and of course, assess discriminant and convergent validity. So I just want to show you a taste of the scale. So the participants in the first study were invited to respond to a self-report questionnaire. Here we wanted to assess the frequency of this phenomena in everyday life. For example, I ran into something or someone that I thought about in an unexpected place, or I ran into a situation or a personal encounter that opened up new opportunities. And people had to kind of rate the degree of frequency in their lives, from never to all the time. And looking at the graph, we can see that synchronicity experiences are quite common. Yet the tendency to be aware of such experiences varies between individuals and distribute quite normally. Yeah, we can see that everyone, almost everyone that we've asked, and this is in both samples, can think of even just one or more example of such experience. The second subscale, that was the first one. I just want to remind you, synchronicity awareness, how much I'm aware of these kind of experiences in my life. The second subscale of the questionnaire is meaning detecting. And this focuses on the meaning that people detect in such experiences. For example, I believe that things are not arbitrary or random in the world and that everything happens for a reason. Or I find meaning in unexplained occurrences. Again, here people had to indicate how much they agree or disagree with these statements, again, derived from the literature and from interviews with people. And the internal reliabilities were found to be high in both subscales. Positive and significant correlation between both factors support the connotation that synchronicity awareness and meaning detecting reflect related yet distinct constructs. So we need both. We need to be aware and to detect meaning in them. We also assessed discriminant and convergent validity, comparing synchronicity awareness and meaning detecting with related constructs of individual differences. And in general, we can see here, and as predicted, that synchronicity awareness and meaning detecting were positively associated with extroversion, agreeableness, openness to experience, and tolerance for ambiguity. Looking at the big 5 personality traits, the highest positive correlations were found with openness to experience, which is, again, very intuitively. We can think about it when we're open, we can find more meaning in unexpected experiences. And interestingly, we also find positive correlations with both presence and search for meaning in life, which is very interesting. Taking one step further, we collected another set of data to further replicate study 1 and to further validate the internal structure of the scale in an independent sample. We also wanted to explore the relationships between synchronicity scales and other measures of well-being, such as life satisfaction and other variables. We also wanted to understand the relationship between search for meaning in life, that we all know that is a very complex variable, and life satisfaction, pointing to the role of synchronicity awareness and meaning detecting as possible mediators. So we suggested a theoretical model that one of the mechanisms relating search for meaning with higher life satisfaction is synchronicity awareness and meaning detecting. So specifically, we suggested that the more individuals search for meaning, they are more open to synchronicity experiences. They notice them more and they tend to detect meaning in them. Again, as we've seen in our examples, right? Because search for meaning can serve as a schema, as a state of mind. Once I search for meaning, I'm more open to these kind of unpredictable and unexpected experiences, and I can detect meaning in them. And this mindset may contribute to greater positive view of the future, optimism, and a sense of meaning in life, presence of meaning, which in turn may be associated with increased life satisfaction. So our next step was to conduct a confirmatory factor analysis, and we validated the internal structure of the model. The results suggested an acceptable fit and that the two-factor scale has a better significantly than one-factor model. So we need both, as I mentioned earlier. We need to both be aware to these kind of experiences that happen on an everyday basis, and also to detect meaning in them. Also, we explored the correlations between the two factors with well-being of variables. And we found, very interestingly, positive correlations between synchronicity awareness and meaning detecting and optimism, life satisfaction, search and presence of meaning. And also, very interestingly, I will refer to that later, we also found positive correlations with depression, but not with anxiety. And I'll discuss that a bit later. Finally, we used path analysis to test the theoretical model. We conducted multiple mediation analyses, and the final model had a good fit. So you can see that the more we search for meaning, the more we are open to synchronicity experiences, as Jung mentioned in his clinical work, and we can find meaning in them, which leads to more optimism, a sense of meaning in life, and then contributes to life satisfaction. So just to sum up, the present study extends previous research and suggests several key findings. So we see that a vast majority of the participants in both samples reported experiencing at least one synchronicity event, suggesting that awareness of synchronicity experiences is rather widespread. This is something we usually ignore, but it's rather widespread in people's experiences. We also found that the two-factor structure of the questionnaire that emerged from the bottom-up approach of the REM model is supported as a questionnaire. We also found that the two factors demonstrated a high internal reliability and appeared to capture distinct yet related aspects of synchronicity experience phenomena. Again, it is not enough to just notice them. We need to detect meaning in them. And the findings also suggest that synchronicity awareness and meaning detecting are positively associated with openness to experience out of the big five, and also tolerance for ambiguity. These are qualities that are really needed in our world today, being open to experience and being tolerant to ambiguity. And also the results of the model suggest that individuals who search for meaning and are open to synchronicity events and manage to make sense of them may experience more meaning and optimism, which eventually may contribute to greater life satisfaction. So these findings may extend previous research documenting the scope and prevalence of the phenomena among non-clinical general population samples. And this is really important. So overall, the findings suggest that synchronicity awareness and meaning detecting may be a potential resource for meaning in life and well-being. And it has important implications for theoretical models, empirical research and practice in education, in therapy, organization, interventions that may allow people to be more sensitive or more open to these kind of experiences. However, it is important for me to note that there may be a dark side. In everything, we have a dark side that we need to take note of, that it should be considered and further explored in future studies, because we found, as I mentioned, a positive correlation with depression. So it may be possible that over-interpretation, over trying to ruminating over meaning, this is, of course, generally important, or excessive rumination over unexpected events. What is the sign? What is the message in everything may trigger a distorted sense of meaning. It may lead to undesirable experiences. For example, it was theoretically suggested that unregulated explanatory models regarding coincident experiences may lead to psychopathology processes such as paranoia or magical thinking, such as I'm always wearing my lucky shirt, or I always tend to go in this street and not the other. So again, with everything, right? With everything we're studying, there's always the importance of taking note of the possible dark side, of the right amount or the middle pathway of how we can allow meaning detecting in unexpected experience, but still maintaining the right measure of it. And of course, this is just the beginning. There's so much, I think, to be explored on this topic of synchronicity, and we're only just beginning to unpack it, how it can be applied to one's life. What is it? What's the role of it? There are still many remaining open questions for further exploration. For example, who are the individuals who experience synchronicity awareness? Which traits and capabilities, perhaps character strengths? I'm working with the VIA Institute to work on that now, to understand which character strengths are connected to being open to unexpected experiences in our environment. What are the possible mental and physical benefits of being aware? What are the occupational advantages? It can be career progress, it can be being open to new career opportunities that may stem from such awareness. And can people be trained? Can we develop interventions from a young age, for example, and in organizations and therapeutic and, of course, different contexts to help people become more sensitive to external events that hold meaning cues for their lives? And of course, I invite you to raise more questions of your own for further exploration. For example, I'm currently conducting developmental studies to understand how it plays out in different ages, because we know that as we get older, we're less, in general, open to these kind of unexpected incoherence regularities in our everyday experience, and also cross-cultural studies to explore the various functions and manifestations of these phenomena in different contexts. For example, I assume that for secular people versus ultra-religious people, it can be a different experience. For ultra-religious people, at least here, we know that there is a sense of personal providence, a sense that you are being guided in everything, every decision you make. How does this plays out for secular people and for religious people, for example, or for different cultures around the world? So this is a very interesting direction for future research and exploration, and I invite you to be a part of that. I would love to collaborate on taking this step further. So I want to, in kind of wrapping up a bit of the things I've mentioned, I want to invite you to adopt a meaning mindset. We know that Viktor Frankl mentioned that life is meaningful under any circumstance. So meaning potentials exist at each and every moment in our lives, even the most challenging ones. Meaning cannot be given to us through our parents or educators or prescribed by our, I don't know, psychiatrist. Rather, it needs to be discovered through an active, dynamic, and unfolding process of exploring and engagement with the world It's not a passive process. It's not something that just happens to us, just landing in our kind of arms. We need to be active. It requires openness, paying attention and curiosity on the one hand. This is the first subscale. And on the other hand, it requires connecting the dots, as we've seen in the picture of the dog, developing an orientation of learned meaningfulness, rather than ignoring or rejecting unexpected triggers in our life. And such a mindset has important implications for the world we live in today. The world we're living in today is not linear as it used to be, right? Everything is unexpected. Just think of COVID. Who anticipated this world pandemic, for example? So in order to cope with the challenges of our changing world, where uncertainty and complexity appear to be a significant part of our day-to-day reality, we need to develop those skills. We need to develop a meaning mindset. And this process of exploring this topic taught me to become more aware of how we live our lives on a daily basis. How do we look at the world? How do we frame situations? Are we looking for meaning in the unexpected? Do we look beneath the surface? You know, William James once said that my experience is what I agree to attend to. This is a very, very powerful sentence, I think. My experience is what I agree to attend to. In an age of fast-paced technology, distractions, FOMO, we can become too busy living life, yet not participating. Busy being busy. We can miss out opportunities to engage with life. And when we are open to random and unexpected events in our lives, encountering new places, new people, new tastes, when we are open to extending our comfort zones in a way, we may discover new pathways for self-discovery and to experiencing meaning in life. We can expand our perspective and personal narratives. A meaning mindset may enable us to rediscover our taken for granted. So taken as a whole, this study and this topic, and my exploration of this topic in the last recent years, aimed at broadening existing perspective regarding the ways in which individuals seek and derive meaning in their lives. I began with how do we find meaning in life? And we know a bit about how people find meaning in life. But expanding this perspective, we can consider the potential role of synchronicity experiences in everyday life. So I want to invite you to explore this rather neglected phenomena of synchronicity experiences, as it may complement existing knowledge on exceptional experiences, on meaning making that we know of, on detecting coherence as a process of meaning. And this may have unique contribution, as I mentioned, to our life in the world today, in the ever-changing world today, and also something that we can develop for ourselves, our clients, our students, to connect the dot and to make sense. And we know that individuals who stay receptive to external unexpected events and turn accidental cues into meaning clues. Yeah, it's meaning clues. It's like being a detective in your life. May cope better with today's changing environment. And we sometimes feel that when we're traveling, right? When we go out outside of our usual routines, we tend to find more opportunities where we, in new surroundings, talking to new people, we may find ourselves looking for these clues in ways that we generally don't do in our familiar workday world. So using the idea of search for meaning as a state of mind or schema, we want to be open, as I mentioned, as we search for meaning, we're more open to detect information relevant to meaning in life, and such awareness can open us up to new knowledge through exploration and meaning detecting. So I'll end this part of my talk with this quote by Albert Einstein about the importance of being open to the unexpected and unknown. The most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious. It is the source of all true art and science. For me, it means to adopt a sense of humility as a researcher, as a practitioner, and to keep in mind that our current conceptualizations and insights may only reflect a limited and specific perspective on the infinite and complex processes to which we have only partial access. So I want to thank you for attention and for joining me. And you're more than welcome to contact me for further questions and thoughts. And if possible, I want to just I can show you more, but I wanted to just open room for discussion and to some stimulating thoughts about this presentation.